Welcome to the Mac and Jack Attack.
And I'm Mac.
I'm Jack, and today we're here with my boy Ernie.
Hey guys, nice to meet y'all. Nice to see ya.
And so just to clear some things up from the last podcast.
Where we left off. Confession, I lied. I'm actually in between in terms of the
Single player and multiplayer.
Yeah, single player and multiplayer games, in which kind of leads us to our next segment,
Yeah, so it's just like we just wanted to talk about, like, do you prefer single player games against multiplayer games? Is there like a difference between the two mediums? Like just stuff like that. And the reason why we brought Ernie on is because he has some very good and different views. I feel like for me and Mac, we have a lot of similar like thoughts when it comes to the two different mediums. Like we both play a lot of each. But yeah, Ernie, would you say that you play more multiplayer games or like single player? Like what kind of games do you typically try out?
Yeah. So personally for me, I've always been more of the person that plays. I've mainly been playing a lot of multiplayer games. Notoriously, I played a lot of League of Legends. Been playing since season 2. But I do like my own single player games as well. Majority of the single player games are mostly story driven games. So a big fan of God of War. Also a big fan of the Spider-Man game that came out a couple years ago.
Nice.
Mostly games that do have, like, in my opinion, rich story and great storytelling. But there are some games too where there are single player games that I do try to like get into that doesn't have as much storytelling as well. But for me personally, if I were to say like what I do play the most, I'd probably say it's mostly multiplayer games for me.
And like, why do you think that you like typically go more towards multiplayer games?
For me personally, for multiplayer games, the main reason why I'm able to go back towards it is because that it has replayability for me.
Really? Okay.
Yes, because for multiplayer games, it's a system that's already set up so that it's a new type of game each update it has. It's not going to be the same thing. Yeah, yes, granted, the game is still the base game, but at the end of the day, you're not trying to beat the game. You're trying to beat the other people, and the other people are always going to be improving, or new players going coming in. You're always going to be improving yourself too, and so that's kind of like the beauty of multiplayer games.
Would you call
Against two single player games where you're playing against the game itself, the story itself.
I see. Sorry about interrupting. I do
No,
have
you're good.
I do have a question for you though. Would you consider yourself a very competitive player though? Like, do you fit in that demographic? Like, do you take games way too seriously?
It depends on who I'm playing with, actually. If it's against a bunch of randos, like random people, like, for example, I'm gonna just put this in league terms. If it's a bunch against like solo queue people, personally for me, I'm not gonna take it competitively because if I'm gonna play like a multiplayer game competitively, I'm competing with myself
Right. Oh, that's a good.
against these random people. But if I'm playing with friends, it's no longer me competing with myself. I'm competing with them as well too. So that's why for like league, whenever I play with my friends, my many friends I've been playing for years and stuff, like I don't care about anybody else. I just care about how they're doing and how I'm doing. And if I'm doing shit, then I get the smack talk. But then when I'm doing good and they're doing shit, then tables have turned.
Okay, so you say that multiplayer games have more replayability, but what do you think that differs compared to like single player games?
Yes.
Some single player games do have replayability, but I feel like at that point, the replayability is for you to. It's more of like you're challenging yourself against the mechanics of the game instead of essentially the game itself, or like the object of the game. Because when you think about a multiplayer game, you're not playing against the game. You're playing against the people with the rules of the game. But when you're playing against single player, you're playing against the game with the rules the game gives you. You know what I mean? Or at the end of the day, it's like there's not a real objective to the game until you beat beat the whole main story, and then when you replay it again, at that point you're just trying to beat the rules the game gives you, or you're trying to perfect it.
So you're telling me that in terms of single player games, you find it repetitive?
To a certain extent, yes. Because I will say that, like, from my personal experience, and I'm not going to try to like talk for everybody else, but I'm pretty sure
Yeah, of
everybody's had
course.
been in the same like experience where they do play a single player game. They haven't beat the game, but like there's like a dead space where like the story's not progressing much. You're like used to mechanics already. Granted that you probably like already are introduced to like 80% of the mechanics of the game, and it's kind of like, damn, at this point I kind of don't really want to play anymore because it's kind of slow, and then the system of the game is slow as well too. And I feel like every game has that point as well.
Mm.
Like for example, like The Last of Us. I haven't played that game myself, but Jackie's talked about it as well. Where there was a point where the story was a bit kind of like but the gameplay was like so repetitive. Like he's doing the same thing over and over. It's kind of like it gets stale, and that's the part that I see as single player games can't replicate against a multiplayer game where the system is not repetitive as much.
Interesting. Then, if that
Yeah.
were the case, then would you? Actually, this is a question for both of you.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms, because you heard his side,
Mm.
Ernie's side, in terms of how repetitive single player games can be. Would you say that multiplayers could offer the same aspect of repetitiveness? My bad.
Yeah, I could, but like in the sense of being fair, it's just like if I am playing the game in a repetitive way, then that's kind of my fault for not
Mm-hmm.
changing my like tactics around something.
Right.
Like I could be doing the same exact thing in like Siege,
Right.
and it could work a lot of the time, but am I gonna have as much fun doing it over and over and over again?
To be honest with you, that's the thing I actually understand for sure. Because like, for single player games, you're competing yourself against the game itself.
Yeah.
Stuff like, the thing about multiplayer games as well, at least in my point of perspective, I also, me personally, I find that also repetitive.
Yeah.
For example, what's that game I'm playing right now? Or how about this Player Battlegrounds? PUBG.
Yeah.
It's technically drop in, try to survive. If you die, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Basically, that's
Yeah.
how I see it, right? And it's the same thing with also Call of Duty. Drop in, kill as many people as you can, and then try to aim for the high scoreboard. But just like Ernie, I understand why like it's always going to be different players,
Right.
right? You're competing with other people. I get that, but it's quite interesting actually because like the way I see it, I see multiplayer games becoming a bit more repetitive than single player games.
Yeah, in a sense,
Mhm.
because like the thing about multiplayer games is that they have to chase trends
Mm-hmm.
in a sense.
Yeah.
Like how many, what do you call it, battle royale games have came out since PUBG? Like
Yeah.
Fortnite spawned because of PUBG,
Yeah.
and like there are still battle royale games being made right now, but it's like no one's gonna play those. They're only gonna play like the big ones.
Yeah.
But another thing that you brought up earlier, Ernie, this is like kind of going off topic of
Go for it.
repetitiveness. But I would like to go back to that later on. But then like you said that you never played The Last of Us, Ernie, and like do you
Yeah.
think that like single player games, there's a lot of like story based games. Like that's the big portion of what makes single player games. Like what's to stop you from just watching it on YouTube compared to like actually playing the game?
To be honest, I've watched gameplays of The Last of Us. I've seen the whole entire thing of like people playing The Last of Us 1, not 2.
Yeah.
And there are some games where you can just watch the like cinematic stuff, and get the whole story of the game. But I feel like playing the game and watching people play the game is like a difference between watching a movie in a movie theater and watching a movie at home. They give you two different experiences where like when you're watching a movie in a movie theater, it gives you a certain type of environment, a certain type of atmosphere when you're playing that game or watching that movie. For example, like I'm gonna just try to stick with like one particular game for each genre. So like for single player games, I'm gonna just go to God of War because I fucking love God of War. And then for multiplayer
Yes.
games, I'm gonna just stick with League. But for God of War, I feel like if I were to watch God of War, I wouldn't like it as much as if I played it because when you play video games, you're playing at your own pace. You're discovering things on your own. For example, like an example in like in this like in any single player games when you watch people play, there's two paths, and you could choose which path you want to go to. Sometimes the people that you're watching, when they take these paths, they take the opposite path that you want to take. So because of that, they either progress the story or they're like prolonging the story. When you're playing the game, you kind of dictate how fast you want to tell a story, or how fast you want to listen or watch the story unfold. And there are elements too where like when you do fight certain bosses as well too, like the difficulty of the bosses also dictate the story as well too. Because like for example, I know I said I was going to stick with God of War, but I'm going to jump to Sekiro real quick. For example, if I were to watch Sekiro, I would understand the frustration if it was to fight each single boss.
Right.
But since I'm playing it, I understand the frustration, and then the difficulty that the boss displays when you're playing gives you a sense of, like, gives you like a connotation or like a grasp of how this person is in real life, or if you were part of that story, how that person would be if you interacted with them. So example would be Kenichiro. Like I said, he's always, like I tell Jackie and my other friends too, that Genichiro is probably one of my favorite bosses in Sekiro because he was legit a skill check. If you couldn't pass him, that means that you couldn't beat the game. And if I were to just watch people fight him, they're probably just going to skip out all the parts where they died like 40, 50 times, but the one time they do win, that's the part they're going to keep. But when I'm playing the game, I'm getting my ass beat 40, 50 times, and then after like the 100th time I beat up, I'm like, bro, this guy was hard as hell. He gave me such a hard time. Feels so good. I'm not watching it as the player. I mean, as a watcher. I'm experiencing this as a player. I'm experiencing it as if I was Sekiro. That if I was a person that was actually fighting him as an individual and realizing how strong he was or how much of a character he is essentially. And
So
that's why yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, how do you think that differs, having like a skill check in a single player game compared to like if you're like playing Street Fighter against someone who is really good? Like I don't know,
mean,
really. Yeah.
I mean, I guess in a multiplayer game, a skill check is just you, like, your win streak. That's what I feel like the skill check is. Like, if you keep losing, that's when you realize that like either you're trash or the other people's really, really good. And you just got to deduce what it is and just keep playing until the point where you do either get better or worse, and you realize then, oh, 50 games ago when I was playing against this guy or these other people online, I was losing, but now I'm starting to get like my win rate's now at 50%. You know, I feel like that's the skill check when you do realize that, like, oh, in the past I done this or that, whatever, but I lost because of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just gonna kind of go off of what you were talking about with like the reason why you would rather like play through certain things compared to watching it. Like, shit, I don't know where to go with this.
Actually, yeah, I agree with Ernie because like if there is a huge difference. You're technically just watching someone else play it, and then when you play it, it's your experience. You get to control what the story plays out.
So, yeah, and I probably say like the best way to like analogize it is kind of like you're the producer of the film. You get to dictate how fast you're filming the film, how fast they're speaking, how fast they're going to be doing from point A to point B and all that stuff.
Right.
You get to determine how you want to tell the story. But when it comes to you watching it, you're literally watching it in somebody else's eyes. It's kind of like art, where it's kind of like when you see somebody draw something, you're looking from their perspective of something. But then when you're given the tools to do your own art or to do your version of this art, you could do whatever you want.
Yeah. Would you say that when it comes to story-based games, like single-player games, I'm gonna be so tired of saying and hearing single-player after this. But yeah, would you say story-based games are what you go to when you're looking for art, and then multiplayer is where you go to like just have fun?
Yeah, so I say multiplayer games is more of like a kind of like when you want to show your brain off. For me, that is because you're not there to enjoy. I say you're not there to actually enjoy the game. You're there to enjoy the company of playing the game. People can have different like responses to that too, but that's how I personally view it as for multiplayer games, because like I was a big fan of League of Legends, like I said. I was also a big fan of Apex, Fortnite. I played a little bit too, dabbled. PUBG, dabbled less, but I still played a lot of stuff. They were fun, but I was mostly playing those for my friends, like playing with my friends to pass time, to essentially like have my brain shut off and just chill with them. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Actually quite the opposite.
Okay, like what's your view on
Okay,
that? Yeah.
okay. So I'm gonna go back to League. This is just an example. Well, a true example. Back in the day, I used to play League. Okay, ranked, so competitively, but I'm trash. Just to put that out there, I'm trash. But back then, I would get really pissed off over stupid mistakes that my friends did as a group and as a team. So for me to like at that point, I don't find that enjoyment. It's nothing but stress. And usually at that point, I just switch off I totally take down multiplayer and I just switch to like single player at that point. Like for example, if I just want to calm, feel like a badass, I play Skyrim. I'm the Dragonborn. Nothing can kill me.
Yeah.
So I agree with what you said, but it's me personally. Yeah, it depends what game it is. If it's a League, or especially with a few of my friends, especially if we take it really seriously, it just feels nothing but stress. If I were to be super honest, and if they are listening, I'm sorry, but nah, fam, I can't deal with them if it's like ranked. I'm getting demoted because of that.
Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah, that like
Mhm.
some people have different mentalities when it comes to playing like multiplayer games.
Yeah.
For me
Yeah.
personally, like for I could like relate to you when like there was a time where I did play League like rank only, but after a while, that was only when I was playing by myself though. I didn't really play rank with like my friends, whatever.
Okay.
Just because I feel like if you play with your friends, you're just like you're what's the opposite term of playing with a handicap? No, I feel like that's what it is because like you're essentially getting boosted. That's how I also feel like it because like when you're playing like any competitive game with a friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, are you really as good as you are playing with them if you were to play with other people? Because I feel like if you're actually good, you could play with other people just as fine as, well, not just as fine, but almost on par
Mm-hmm.
with strangers. And so that's why I never really have that's why I never had a real big deal playing rank.
Mm-hmm.
But I have played like League like with like in a competitive setting where we have played tournaments before, and like there are times where like when we do lose, like there'll be times where like 20-30 minutes we just wouldn't talk to each other because we were like not because we were mad at each other, just because we were trying to wonder why we were losing.
Right.
And we were all skilled enough to know that like, oh, we lost because I was trash, and if we were to point it out, there's kind of like no point of pointing it out because we all knew what the issue was.
Right.
So that's how I think you and me differ a little bit with our League experience, just due to like the way we like think of how to play the game.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I agree. It depends who you're playing with, how you see things.
Yeah.
To be honest, if it comes to League, well, I don't know about you, but like, did you just when you saw that game, were you just interested for yourself and played it yourself, or did someone take you in?
Somebody took me in, bro. They took my
gotcha.
head, plunged it underneath the water, and I got baptized.
Dude, it'd
That's
be
how
like
it
that
was, bro. And
sometimes, though.
after that, 8 years. Is it 8 years? Yeah, 8 years or 9 years of me playing League. After 10 seasons, I'm still still under the Church of League of Legends and Riot Games.
Got you. Okay.
So like a lot of AAA and single player games, they are released at like full price. Do you think that that's like one of the biggest reasons why there is a gap between like the two mediums? Like because you could pay $60 to play a game that's only 8 hours, whereas there are free games like Fortnite where you could.
So I do believe that the pricing of games do matter when it comes to playing single player games and multiplayer games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I actually have kind of like a not necessarily controversial, but very different mindset when it comes to like pricing video games. But we could just talk about it at a different time. When it comes to most like competitive games, right? I do believe actually that the free to play style when it comes to like advertisement is actually the way to go. Because for competitive games, I think if any game is going to be any like multiplayer game, there's always going to be competitiveness to it.
Yeah, of course.
And if there's competitiveness to it, there's always going to be an opportunity for there to be some sort of esport to it. Now that quote there, that like me saying that, probably like, other people have different responses to that. But I just think that any multiplayer game is going to have some sort of competitive or esport to it. And if you're going to want to like if you're gonna try to like cater towards like a competitive game, you gotta like be able to have a pool size of individual like good enough to be able to compete. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if you're going to be gatekeeping the game to $60, and majority of the, not majority, like almost like 100% of the demographic is younger people. If you're going to be doing $60, these younger people don't have the money for that. That's why Fortnite, that's why League of Legends, that's why Valorant, all the other free-to-play competitive games are so successful, because the only thing gatekeeping them from playing the games is having the technology to play it.
Right.
And so compared to
sorry.
single-player games where you gotta buy the game in order for you to play it, I feel like that's a total big gatekeeper.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What did you have to say, Mac?
Oh, okay. So just to reiterate the question, basically, should multiplayer games be basically $60 range, especially AAA games, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's kind of just like how single player games are for the most part like fully priced games, where multiplayer games, they're like mostly free to play now.
Okay.
Like I do really agree with what Ernie was saying. If they want a game to like live long, have a good community,
Right.
and well, I can't really say good because all these fucking toxic ass communities out here, but you know, it's a lot more accessible. And like you look at Destiny 2, it was a full $60 game, and it had like a shit ton of DLC too.
Right.
But now like the base game is free to play because that game has its own community. Like there are a lot of cases of big games that just go free to play after a while.
Okay.
So like I was just basically saying, like, do you think that that's part of the reason why single player games don't really have as much sales or like numbers? Not as many people talk about them.
If we delve into that, it really depends on the company and how much hype it has. Because like honestly, if there was an indie game that that's trying to get out there and it's priced at 60, no one's gonna go for it.
Oh yeah,
but no one's gonna go for it. And just for me personally, I'm always for the consumer, and I agree with Ernie as well. Like, okay, if it's gonna be like a free game, right? Especially a multiplayer, it feels like that's the way to go. But here's the thing. Oops, sorry. This is where I stand my ground for sure. Don't fuck with your player base. I got a thing with Valorant right now. Okay.
Oh
yeah. I got a thing with Valorant that pisses me off. One reason, right, is they had a bundle skins, right? Why the fuck is it like? Well, I could be wrong, but it's so much. 86, 100, 300. What is it?
I think it's almost $300 for
Dude,
the full pack.
Why? That makes no sense. I get the game is free, and I get that you gotta make the money because I know it's a separate company, right? That's or not. It's the same
separate
company.
team from
separate team.
League.
I get it, right? I understand it, but don't fuck with your player base like that. It's just like Ernie said, it's mostly kids, right? Even whether kids, adults, tweens, anything in between, we're not gonna do that. If people do that, then why are you doing it? Don't do it. It makes no sense to me to be selling skins that expensive. So yes, I
got a question.
Yeah, go for
real
it.
quick. Are you only able to buy those bundles as a bundle, or you could buy those things separately?
Actually, that's the thing. If you buy it separately, I could, okay, we could be entirely wrong for this. From what I heard or conversations I had, I heard it's more expensive to buy everything individually than it's just simply to just buy it as a bundle. But even then, it's still too much money. Like, I don't see why. It feels very manipulative. Sorry, I can't pronounce that. To me, in a sense, and why it makes no sense. You already have a following in Valorant, right? Why do you have to trick your customers, or not even trick, but do that sort of like
practices?
Yeah, practices. It makes no sense. I mean, I know that it's from a different team, but look at League. They're selling skins. Granted, they're $10, but is it $10 per skin? Something like that.
I don't know.
It's been a while since I played League, but I still think that's too much money. So that's my stance on it.
Yeah, and we could go on days and days with just the whole idea of microtransactions, which, like, it is one of the worst parts about multiplayer games. Like, there are again, AAA games that come out,
Yeah.
and they still try to sell you that bullshit, like Anthem. And that is a really shitty thing that they try to do, and it's
Right.
something that I don't understand.
The thing is, it's honestly, like I said, I get it. It has to be reasonable. They have to sustain as a company.
Yeah.
I get that. But yeah, that's again example Valorant. That I don't fuck with that. That's
Yeah.
too much. But final statement, I agree with Ernie. Free multiplayer games should be the way it is, but don't overprice your shit, especially for skins or anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah. Besides like the free games, I'm also okay with, let's say, a multiplayer game being like 30 to no, not even like 40
Yeah.
$40. I think that's reasonable too.
Yeah.
But anything above, and if it's just multiplayer too, I think it's unreasonable.
Yeah.
That's my stance on it, at least. What about yours?
So I'll put my input on this. To add on, I think single player games need to be priced at a certain amount in order for the company to make money. Because if it's free, how are they going to make the money? Essentially, like, are
You
they
know
just going to
what?
do in-game purchases, whatever? Like, it's kind of like there's no point for me.
Well-
That is in my eyes, because when you do have in-game stuff where you can buy cosmetic like skins and stuff
Mhm.
for story-based games or single player games, what happens then after like you stop playing the game because of the replayability? It's kind of like, oh, your money kind of went down the drain, even though you paid it for pay like, let's say, $5 or $2 just for you to replay the game for like what, maybe another 20 hours.
Mhm.
This might be a hot take, but I believe that the pricing for a game should be a little bit more than 60, actually, to be honest.
Really?
Oh, that is a
Whoa,
hot take.
Whoa, wait. How much do you think it should cost? Like, in your opinion?
I don't think it should be a situation where the gaming company should dictate how much a game should cost and there is no cap. I think that if a company puts a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I know that's a very like broad word,
Mm-hmm.
but if a game is actually genuinely good and they put a shit ton of time, more time on it than like on an average like game that does come out, if the game is that good, it should cost more than $60. Because if you think about it, like, I never understood why $60 is like the maximum for like a video game. If the game costs more, right, that means that the company's getting more money.
Yeah.
Now, in an ideal world, if the company's getting more money, they could put that money towards the company to be better. And if the company's better, it makes the game better. That's how I see it. If you're, let's say, for example, like, say Riot Games makes a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they, it's a story based. Let's say this. Riot Games makes a single player RPG game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could play up to 20 of the champions and play their story, but the game cost of the game is like $120. But you have 20 different characters, and each one of them has like, let's say, 20 hours worth of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Would you not want to buy that?
Wow, that is a thought, actually. Wait a minute.
Compared to buying a $60 game where you can only play one character and you're going to play for 60 hours?
I don't know. What do you think?
Well,
Or think about it like this. Let's say Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they actually put all the time and effort and money into make to a Pokemon game where you could go to all the regions, catch all the Pokemon, and play against all the gym leaders. And it would be a pretty cool thing too. What if at the very end, the final battle, like the final Elite Four or whatever, you play against all the main characters from each one of the Pokemon games, and then you play against all the rivals, and that's the end. And that's
And
when
this
you're
is
like
where-
the Pokemon champion. Would you be willing to pay $60 for that, or would you be willing to pay for more? Because essentially risked more, or they invested more into it. I feel like if you were paying $60 for that, that's almost having like a professional at their job doing like their like hardest work, only getting paid minimum wage. I feel like that's unfair.
This is the thing, Ernie. Like, well, if we're gonna talk about Pokemon in particular, Pokemon already has that money. It's one of the biggest franchises in the world. They have the potential to be doing that shit, but they don't. It's not. I don't think it's based on the price of the game. Like, yeah, it'd be really cool to see that. I know it's not ever gonna happen. I don't know if you could attribute pricing like that on a video game just based on like the content, I guess, or like
People's egos would be really high.
yeah,
if you
and
really think
like
about it.
you know, it really goes into quality and quantity. Like, which one do you prefer? I'm okay with spending $60 on like a 20-hour game. Okay, you have something to say?
Well, to be fair on Ernie's point, this is the part where like this threw me off. I understand, like, well, let's put this out there. We're not experts on how the gaming like industry, development
yeah.
and how much
We don't know
they're supposed to
shit.
cost. But let's say that in Ernie's point, yeah, if they work hard, right?
Yeah.
If they work really hard and the game performs and it's great, to be honest, yeah, why not? It could be more than $60
Yeah.
to accompany the things that they did. But just like what you said before, how are they going to make more money further on, right? Because obviously DLC comes into play and all that other jazz. If they do that, let's say they work twice as hard as the DLC, they're gonna increase it more and more, which is totally fine. Because if you make something that's worth, then put it out for what it's worth. I get that. But
Yeah.
as a consumer, not a lot of people. It depends. Like, cause like it depends also on the people that are making it. Like for example, let's say I'm a douchebag, right?
Yeah, let's say.
I got a game it's amazing. Anyone that says it's bad, it's shit. Yeah, they're terrible people. It's worth $250. This game is worth $250, and it depends who it is, right? And if the douchebag puts a game out like that, as a consumer, would you guys pay for it? Think about that for a second, because like, we're average consumers. I think $60 as personally, $60 is reasonable. If you put maybe 70, I think 80 is too high. 70, I think 70 is right, but 250. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if we were to let's go like a bit. I don't want to say old school because
Oh, go for
it wasn't that long ago. But let's say Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty was a AAA game. Pay $60 to play the game, right? Now there's longevity where you can play multiplayer and whatever.
Yeah.
But there's also backpacks, right? Like you could buy bundles or DLCs to get like more maps, right?
Mhm.
And let's just say the flat amount's like $5, right? But people are still buying those DLCs. The game is not just $60 if you're buying those DLCs. It's like, let's say on average it take like do 4, right?
Yeah.
And it's $80 now. You know what I mean? At that point, it's kind of like, why don't you just make me pay $80 and have any further DLCs I get for free?
That's
You know
kind
what I mean?
of where season passes and all that comes in, and like it does get really corrupted, especially with like shit like Ubisoft, because they'll release like a gold edition, a deluxe edition, and just like a bunch of different versions of the same game, and yeah, they'll come with season passes for all the DLC. So that is already happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that does put more value because you are paying for more things, and like you are getting it for a cheaper price by paying for those gold editions and whatnots. We also live in an age where like a lot of indie games are coming out all the time. I was talking to you about Ori and the Blind Forest and all that.
Yeah.
I got that game for $5. That is one of my favorite games of all time now. I would have easily I guess this does
See?
go with what you said. I would have easily paid like $60 or something, some shit like that for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But with indie games, it does kind of show how good a game could be, even though it's not expensive, I guess. And it's hard to put a monetary value to how good a game is. Like The Last of Us 2, it's a very controversial game right now. I paid $60 for it.
Right.
And like I know that they put a lot of years into making that game. A lot of people put in like a shit ton of hours just to make it. Should that make the game cost more? Like I guess it does make sense where, they did spend a lot more money on it and all that, but then that's the money that they're spending on making the game is also going towards like developers working wages and all that. Like it doesn't compensate for the hours that they had to stay behind, like working 100-hour weeks and all that. Like that is totally unfair, but then that's just going into more of the shitty work environment of the gaming industry.
Yeah, so I think one thing I want to also add too is that like the way I think about this when it comes to like the $60 price tag, it's like as time progresses, things inflate. So the things that like the cost of certain things,
oh yeah, for sure,
like changes. Yeah, so some things become more expensive, some things become less expensive. And like another, like one example, like I know this is not gaming, but one example I think of is, you know how Subway, they had the $5 foot long, pay
Yeah.
for $5 foot long. At the end of the day, they can't keep that same model because inflation is going to happen. Things are going to get more expensive. That's not going to work anymore.
Yeah,
And then
that's
so
true.
what happens if in the game, like technology is getting better, the amount of money that you need to invest to get all like the 4K, how fast the game runs, or whatever, or like if there's any like technical stuff. I feel like as that stuff keeps improving, we just can't gatekeep just $60. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree
He's
with
like,
that.
he's like $60 now is going to be different from $60 in the future.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I
Right,
feel
and
like,
like
yeah.
back in the day,
So that's
games used to cost $80 like normally, and
Yeah.
like you said, it's just like the value of a dollar changes over years.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back to like the free to play stuff and how much a competitive game should cost. You were talking about how you should be paying a more upfront price for a game and you could get more out of it. Like that makes me think of fighting games. You're paying for characters every time a character comes out.
So here's my take on like free to play multiplayer games.
Yeah.
Mac's gonna hate me for saying this, but I feel like if a game is free to play, they need to make their money, and the money that for most free to play games is cosmetics. Now these bundles, like for example Valorant, the bundle, yeah, it is $300 to buy, like to get the like stuff, right? But that is all an option. Just because
Yeah,
you play
everything-
Valorant,
Oh, yeah.
yes, you do play Valorant, and you want like you're investing to it, but that is an option for you to buy the skin. Like it's a cosmetic. At the end of the day, if you're buying a skin, you're buying it because it's a luxury. And I say Valorant and Riot Games has enough of a backing, enough evidence to show that they're a AAA gaming company where they are able to, where if they were to say, oh, this bundle costs $300, I wouldn't be surprised. Not saying it's
Yeah.
justified. I say I wouldn't be surprised because for me personally, I say like the art direction from the Riot Games company, they have like S tier art designer, S tier artists working there doing art concept and stuff too. And if they want to charge $300, it's kind of like it's not right, but I can see why they do it because they deserve it, or like they can work for it.
Right,
They
so
can prove
how-
that it costs $300.
How about this? Like whenever it comes to microtransactions and buying skins, I don't give a shit. I don't really see my character 90% of the time anyways. So I feel like there are a lot of people that are like that. I mean, a lot of people just look at it and they're disgusted by it and they don't want to like
Yeah.
they'll shit on a game just because it has microtransactions. So back in the day, like this still does happen, but like in MMOs, there's a subscription fee every month. Do you think that would be like, would that make things better compared to microtransactions, or do you think that would make things worse by having some sort of paywall?
With like a monthly subscription.
Yeah, like a
to
monthly
get-
subscription. Like I think for World of Warcraft, it was like $15 a month or some shit like that,
Yeah, it
which
was
is
about
fucking crazy.
$15 a month.
Yeah.
That's interesting actually, because like I played World of Warcraft.
Right.
I do that, but that's because this could probably be said for the other games as well. But World of Warcraft, especially for MMOs, it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Like all the time. That's why you pay for those type of things. And the updates that happen, I mean, it's technically a worldwide event.
And that could also be said with like League and
Yeah.
shit like that, because there's always patches and changes to a game. So in order to have the players support the company without anything that seems too egregious, do you think like a subscription could work in this day and age? I mean, like it kind of exists in like battle passes.
Yeah.
I say yes. Now,
Yeah.
here's my take on it. I think if the company is big enough and has enough games that are being developed, i.e., let's just go with Blizzard, just because Blizzard has a lot of games underneath their belt. It would be pretty cool if Blizzard had a tier subscription list, right? Where depending on how much you pay for your subscription, you could play a set amount of games that they have. So let's say if you buy the bronze tier, right? You could choose any 3 games that they have as long as you pay the subscription. So let's say I pay $15 a month, right? I could play, or let's say 30, just be safe. I could play World of Warcraft, I could play StarCraft, and I could play Overwatch. And me paying $30 for that bronze subscription, I could play those 3 games for free, but I'm still paying for them. You know what I mean? And if I were to pay a higher tier one, I could get more games to play if I like the company enough, or the company makes enough good games.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I get it actually.
You got any takes?
Yeah.
In terms of like a subscription a month, I'm just gonna go back with the battle pass, yeah, because like it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
In terms of it not working or working, actually, it could work.
Yeah.
It could work. I mean, like, again, I'm still based on if the subscription is like, I would say 50 a month. I don't know, but $15 a month seems reasonable each month to get like new stuff, especially content.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we do also
like-
live in an age where like there are a lot more people playing games, a lot like more streaming and all that. A lot more kids playing games.
What do you mean?
Man, that's gonna be weird. I don't think any parent wants to hear their kids having a subscription to anything.
I mean, it's common now.
Yeah.
So, are you saying that in terms of like, can you repeat the question?
So basically, what I was gonna go on and talk about is like if there was like even $1 a month to play like Fortnite, like
Just to play the game?
yeah,
I mean, that's essentially World of Warcraft.
yeah, because I feel like Fortnite has a big enough audience, which I feel like they would lose a lot of their audience if that were the case, where there was a subscription fee. But it's got millions of players. If everyone just chipped in $1, that's $1 million.
I mean, like, I don't see the issue with that. It's honestly really cheap.
Mhm.
I mean, $1 a month is not that bad. I mean, see, that to me is understandable. But then again, you know, as it is now, it's a free game. Not that they
Right.
want to do $1 a month. The first thing I'm going to be thinking is, you guys having trouble? What's going on? What was the issue? Why do you need dollars? Like everybody, I mean, I thought free to play was working in the first place.
Right.
But if they did do that, I don't see an issue. It's really cheap.
Yeah. Because I do really see a lot of value in battle passes now. Because at first I didn't really like it because it just made me think of mobile games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it does keep players engaged because everyone just comes in for their dailies and whatnot. And
Yeah, for sure.
for like $10 every 3 months.
Technically, it's an incentive. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I did kind of write a little like couple of other things on
Go for it.
like why I'm not too big on playing multiplayer games all the time. It's like, well, for one thing, I do have friends, but I am a loner by heart. Like I do really like my alone time, and I feel like that's just a me thing. That's why I like to play a lot more single player games. But I feel like there are a lot of, like we were talking about earlier, like toxic communities, and just because of that, it does make me like not want to
Ooh, I got something
try
to say about that.
try
for
things
sure.
out. Like,
Yep.
like Smash is cool. Would I ever hang out with a Smash player? Only if I know that they're not a Smash player first. Yeah, you said you had something to say about it?
Oh no. In terms of like, since we're going into like, you know, the type of person you are, like whether you're a multiplayer type person or a single type person. Me personally, I'm in between.
Yeah.
Cause like I get why multiplayer I gravitate to be honest, I love single player, but I do gravitate towards multiplayer most of the times because, you know, I'm an adult. I got shit to do. And plus with a multiplayer game, you know, you play with friends, hop in and then you hop out.
Yeah.
I think that's really fun. And compared to single player games, you know, it takes time, something to invest to. Not that you could do the same thing, you know, to a single player that you do with a multiplayer game, hop in and hop out. But like for me personally, to get invested to like a single player game, I have to like sit down and play for a longevity hours. If anything, at least 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, I do still love single player games. It just depends on, you know, the individual, what they have going on, because it's
Right.
really hard to invest time with single player games nowadays, especially if you have like a, you know, a life or or if you're just super busy, basically. Sorry if I phrased that wrong. But yeah, that is what I'm trying to say. In terms of the toxic community, as of late, granted, I used to be a toxic player too, but like as of late or later on in the, I sound old, but later on in the years, I started hating also multiplayer games because of the toxicity.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that I sort of what's the word? I can't English. I hate the fact that I contributed to that community, but playing with randos, just the things they say, it really does dumb it down. Granted, I'm okay with constructive criticism, but like if I suck at a game and you're telling me to kill myself, well, damn, I don't wanna. I'm just gonna run down mid, just just so you could lose. But like it is very what's that called? It is very not as motivating to keep playing the game later on. It's gotten to a point where I mute. Right off the back, like I just get into a multiplayer game and I just mute everybody.
Yeah.
And I just play the way I play. So,
I mean, not all communities are toxic.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
Have you guys made friends just through like playing games online? Because personally, I haven't. But that's just because I don't play that many like online games anymore.
Actually, I have with Counter-Strike. I have with League, and yeah, I have. Ernie, what about you? Did you make like long-lasting friendships playing online games?
Yeah, of course. So when it came to League, I've bounced just a tad bit when it came to like friend groups, and some friends did introduce me to other people too to play games and stuff. And that's like for them, like they're the only people I play games with. Like when it comes to like a certain like type of game. Right. For example, Jackie, you've talked to Francis before. He was one of those people that I met playing League of Legends, and like me and him are still good friends to this day. I've only met him like once in real life. I also have a friend. We played League together. We worked together. We were coworkers once. If I were to play League, like if I were to play League with somebody, I'd always be him. Like when he was on, that's the first motherfucker I invite to the game to play League with me because he's the first one I want to talk shit to.
Nice. Okay. That's so cute. That's so cute. To be honest though, man, that's another score for multiplayer games. Like you develop friendships like through playing multiplayer games. Yeah. Whether it be good or bad, but you know, it's because you know what? To be honest, since I'm trying to be the middle ground, essentially you're trying to make memories, whether it be single player games or multiplayer games. And you know what? Granted, in the last podcast I did say I hate multiplayer. Again, that was a lie, but I could see why both are essential. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So regardless, it's good to have both.
Right. It's definitely good to have both. Yeah. Because I don't know, there's a lot of enjoyment, a lot more enjoyment when you're able to play something with your friends. But you could also be sharing stories.
Yep.
Single player. The lack of confidence. But yeah, I think this is a kind of good spot to end it on.
We do want to say thank you, Ernie, for joining us. We love.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Love coming on. If you guys ever want to have me on later on in the future, always down. Even if it's not regarding to gaming or whatever, I'm still willing to talk. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, whenever Riot gets some bad publicity, well,
I'll be there.
Right.
So yeah, like, what do you think about our chat with Ernie?
It was awesome, man. To be honest, it would be really cool to play with him one day on League.
Yeah, I'm glad that we brought on such a manly man. Like, I don't know if the convo would be the same if we had a girl gamer.
Huh? Wait, what? Excuse me?
Oh no. Is Jack really a sexist? Let me call on the females!
You can also listen to us on Spotify and iTunes. We also have a Twitch and a YouTube.